The hum of the busy airport echoed as passengers lined up to board Flight 762 to New York. Among them stood a tall, sharply dressed black man in his late 30s, carrying himself with quiet authority. His name was Marcus Langford, CEO of one of the largest aviation technology companies in the United States. Despite his global influence and success, Marcus was known for his humility, never demanding special treatment. But today, as he handed his first-class boarding pass to the gate agent, he noticed the shift in her eyes. Her smile faded slightly, replaced by hesitation. The woman leaned closer, glanced over his attire, and said softly, "I'm sorry, sir, but it seems your seat has already been assigned." Marcus frowned, confused but composed. "That can't be right," he replied calmly, "I booked it days ago." She avoided eye contact, typing nervously on her keyboard before saying, "We've had a last-minute change. You'll have to take a seat in economy." Marcus's brow furrowed. He wasn't the type to cause scenes, but something about the situation felt off. "Can I speak with your supervisor?" he asked. Before she could respond, a middle-aged pilot walking past gave him a disapproving glance. "Is there a problem here?" The pilot interrupted. The agent explained quickly, "Just a seating issue, Captain." The pilot smirked. "Sir, first class is full. Maybe you can try to upgrade next time earlier." His tone carried a hint of arrogance, dismissive and condescending. Marcus felt the sting of prejudice masked as protocol. Still, he kept his voice level. "I paid for a first-class ticket, Captain. I expect to sit where I'm assigned." The pilot chuckled under his breath and shook his head. "Let's not hold up the line. He can take economy or catch the next flight," he said, walking off toward the jet bridge. A few passengers nearby looked uncomfortable, whispering among themselves. Marcus noticed their reactions but didn't let anger dictate his response. He took a deep breath, remembering the lessons his late mother taught him: never let ignorance define your worth. "Fine," he said quietly, taking the economy boarding pass the agent handed him. As he walked toward the gate, the woman avoided meeting his eyes. He took his seat at the back of the plane, surrounded by chatter and the rustle of carry-ons. People brushed past, oblivious to the man who designed systems that kept many of the world's aircraft safe. Marcus gazed out the window, reflecting on how success didn't shield one from disrespect. Still, he promised himself to handle this with grace, but also with precision. Minutes later, the pilot's voice came over the intercom, cheerfully announcing the flight schedule. Marcus recognized his voice instantly. The same man who belittled him was now about to pilot the plane. He took out his phone, connected to the airline's private business network, and sent a message to his corporate office. His company, Aerolux Systems, held the maintenance and safety contracts for this airline's fleet. Every flight, including this one, relied on his team's software to monitor in-flight diagnostics. Within minutes, he received a reply confirming his authority to access the plane's data. Marcus wasn't doing this out of revenge, but out of duty. He needed to ensure that the person in control of hundreds of lives truly deserved that responsibility. The flight attendants began their safety demonstration as the plane started taxiing toward the runway. Marcus sat quietly, opening a secure tablet that synchronized with the cockpit's operational system. As the engines revved, a small alert popped up. An unauthorized maintenance override had been logged under the pilot's credentials earlier that morning. Marcus's expression hardened. This wasn't just arrogance, it was negligence. He immediately cross-checked the log with the airline's security database and confirmed that the pilot had bypassed a required pre-flight safety test. The very man who mocked him for being out of place had skipped a protocol that could risk every soul on board. Without hesitation, Marcus activated his company's emergency override command, a rarely used but fully legal executive measure for flight safety. The cockpit lights blinked as the system flagged a Level 3 anomaly. Within seconds, the pilot's voice came over the speaker again, this time uneasy. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a brief technical issue. Please remain seated." The aircraft slowed, turning away from the runway. Marcus remained calm, knowing the system had done its job. The crew scrambled to communicate with ground control, confused by the sudden halt. Marcus quietly requested to speak to the captain through the flight attendant, who at first hesitated but eventually complied when she saw his identification badge. When the pilot arrived at Marcus's seat, Irritation painted his face. "You wanted to see me?" he asked sharply. Marcus looked up at him steadily, his calmness disarming. "Yes," Marcus said, his voice measured. "I'm Marcus Langford, CEO of Aerolux Systems, the company that ensures your aircraft is safe to fly. You might recall our conversation at the gate." The pilot blinked, his confidence faltering. Marcus held up his tablet, showing the unauthorized log entry. "You overrode a critical safety check before takeoff. This plane isn't leaving the ground until that's investigated." The color drained from the pilot's face. Passengers nearby began to murmur, sensing the tension. Marcus continued, "Your negligence could have put lives at risk. And your behavior toward a paying passenger was unacceptable." The captain tried to stammer out an excuse, but Marcus stood, his composure unshakable. "You're relieved of duty effective immediately," Marcus said, pulling up the official termination order authorized through the airline's executive channel. The pilot froze, realizing the depth of his mistake. "You can't," he began, but Marcus interrupted firmly. "I can. And I just did." Airport security arrived moments later, escorting the bewildered captain off the plane. The murmurs grew louder as passengers watched the surreal scene unfold. Some clapped quietly, others exchanged astonished looks. Marcus turned to the flight attendant and said calmly, "Please inform the ground team to assign a new pilot. The passenger's safety comes first." As the situation settled, the gate agent who had earlier denied him the seat appeared at the door, pale and trembling. "Mr. Langford, I had no idea who you were," she whispered apologetically. Marcus looked at her kindly. "That's exactly the point," he replied. "You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with respect." His words carried the quiet weight of truth, echoing through the cabin. The attendants began to rearrange the first-class seating, offering Marcus his original seat back, but he declined with a polite smile. "I'll stay here," he said. "It's where I was meant to be today." As the replacement pilot boarded and the plane prepared for takeoff once more, Marcus looked out the window again. The sunset glowed softly over the tarmac, casting golden light across the wings. He reflected on how life often tested patience before justice. Within 12 minutes, everything had changed, not because he demanded power, but because he upheld principle. He didn't just ground a plane, he grounded arrogance. And as the engines roared to life again, the passengers sat a little straighter, perhaps realizing that sometimes, the quietest person on board holds the greatest strength.